Take a deep breath, take the higher road. That's what they always say, as if they know the way. They won't take it from me. But don't ever doubt yourself, 'cause life ain't just a dream. You make your own, so kick and scream. The people will act with a never-ending force. You never had the chance, so what you waiting for? The day has come, my friend, 'cause this is war. It's time and this is war.
There are moments in our lives that leave an imprint so deep, we carry them forever. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many nurses witnessed something we never thought we'd see in a modern healthcare system. Patients, human beings being left to die alone, stripped of their right to be comforted, held, or prayed over, separated from spouses, children, and lifelong friends. Behind cold hospital doors, connected only by the faint buzz of a video call, if they were lucky. Some took their last breath in silence. Others cried out for someone, anyone, to hold their hand. And their families, powerless, grieving from afar. They were denied access, denied closure, denied basic human dignity. We were told it was for safety, that this was necessary. But deep down, we knew better. We knew that something had gone horribly wrong. These weren't just patients. These were mothers, fathers, grandparents, children. People who had spent their lives loving others only to be left feeling abandoned when they needed love the most. What happened during those years was more than a policy failure. It was a moral failure. Today we say their names in spirit. We remember their faces and we speak truth about what happened, not to dwell in pain, but to demand that this never happen again. This episode is for every family who lost someone alone. This is for the ones who were silenced. You were not forgotten, and you will never be alone in this fight again. You're listening to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Before we get started today, I do want to encourage our listeners, if you have questions or comments, or perhaps you want to share your own experiences with what you're seeing on the front lines of healthcare, you can now submit those to us directly by visiting our website at nursesoutloud.com. We would love to hear from you. We encourage all of you to engage in the battle and find your voice in this fight. But until you are able to do that, we will continue to be that voice for you. Today's episode is incredibly personal, powerful, and needed. We're diving into the very heart of what it means to be human. Connection, presence, and the right to be with our loved ones when it matters most. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed an appalling and traumatic pattern. Patients dying alone, stripped of human contact, isolated by policies made in the name of safety, yet often devoid of compassion. But one man took that pain and turned it into purpose. My guest today is Steve Reiter, founder of the Never Alone Project, a man who lost his beloved wife, Elizabeth, during the height of the pandemic. She died alone, without her husband, without her children, because of inhumane hospital visitation policies. Steve's story is heartbreaking, but what he's done since will restore your faith in advocacy and perseverance. Steve, thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks, Kimberly. I'm already tearing up. That was pretty powerful open. Wow.
Yeah, it's been so hard to watch. You know, we knew what was happening, and it was just so hard to, as nurses, you know, I say this all the time, you know, the moment that they told us that our patients couldn't have an advocate at their side was the moment that we should have stood up and said, absolutely not, no more. And I feel terribly that we didn't stand up in any large number to do that.
Well, it's difficult. I never once blamed or held any anger towards the nurses, the doctors, because in studies that have come out since, overwhelmingly nurses thought that it was a gigantic mistake to lock all the visitors out.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I have a friend, she's a nurse locally. She sent me a study about a year after the pandemic. So this is 2021, spring, summer 2021, if I remember correctly. And it was over 75% of nurses said visitors should have been allowed in. And I said right from the get-go that I understand trying to protect the doctors, nurses, staff, and other patients because my wife was one of those other patients. Lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and then in 2014 she was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, which she had had for years, but the doctors always just blamed that on the lupus. So with the pH, we knew COVID could be something really, really serious for her. And so we locked down hard. So I understood the aspect that things need to be tightened up. But I always said, can't we balance that need to protect with giving the individual the love and attention that they so desperately need? Because you as a nurse know those of us that are in there with our spouse, with our parent, with our grandparent, whoever, our kid, we are nothing but an ass. Overwhelmingly, there
Absolutely.
are exceptions, obviously, there are exceptions, but overwhelmingly, we are an asset to you as nurses because we help get them out of bed and get them
Yeah.
to the bathroom. We help get them ice chips. We alert you, hey, something's going on. That,
Yeah, the extra
this
having
is,
that extra set of eyes is invaluable, especially if you're like, I mean, I'm an ICU nurse. I would have two patients, but on like a med surge floor, say when patients are balancing between 6 and 8 patients, you can't understate the the um the asset of having that extra set of eyes there to alert you to a problem, and you know your loved one better than we do. So you're going to recognize those subtle changes that might be missed in the hospital clinical setting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, one of the things that really kind of struck me in the 12, 24 months after she died that really opened my eyes was this was not only a trauma for the, the the survivors, the people that came out. It was not only a trauma for those that were left and unable to say goodbye, unable to be there the last weeks of their loved one's life, but it was really a trauma also for the nurses. I can't tell you the number of times I have met nurses over the last 5 years that have left the hospital environment
Yeah.
and they're now working elsewhere because of holding up a freaking iPad while someone was dying, or just the negativity that was heaped on them as the person that was the go-between the family and the hospital as an institution.
Yeah,
The
the
anger
moral
was directed
injury
at
is
the
real.
institution, and the nurses were the ones that were taking it, and they had no control over it.
Yeah. It
Yes,
was
there were some heroes that snuck family members in. That friend that sent me the
that would
friend
have
that
been
sent
me.
me that nurse report in 2021 while Elizabeth was still in the hospital. This is late April, early May, before all the hospitals in the state opened up, started letting a visitor in, except for my wife's at the hospital. She said, we had a mom who we didn't think was going to make it through the night, an elderly mom. So we snuck the daughter in. Mom rebounded and went home a few days later.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like when we're isolating these patients, we're really taking away their ability to heal. And when we isolate patients, their immune system also takes a hit as well. So that's a really big thing they don't understand, or they do understand. I should take
They
that
knew
back. They
it.
do
They
understand
they
the
knew it.
effects of isolation, and the psychological, the physiological effects of isolation are well studied and well known. So I'm not going to even give them a pass and say they didn't know. They absolutely did. But what really struck me as in the ICU that I was in, there was a lot of pressure and pushing. They wanted the nurses to push the family members who their loved one was a full code, meaning if their heart stopped or they stopped breathing, then we're going to go all out. We're doing compressions. We're doing all of the things to try to bring them back. They were really pushing us to talk to family members to make these patients DNRs. That really bothered me because some of these patients were otherwise pretty healthy. They weren't, and I'm not talking about old, frail patients. I'm talking about, men and women in their 50s and 60s and just, really not chronically ill patients, but they, for whatever reason, didn't do well with COVID. And well, I don't, my thought on that is it's not COVID at all. It was the remdesivir. It was the treatments that we were giving them in the hospital. But what really struck me, Steve, was that they would say, no, no visitors, no visitors, no visitors, DNR, DNR, DNR. They would finally relent and make them a DNR, and then they would make them comfort measures. When they would make the patient comfort measures, then they would let the family come in. I don't understand. Is it about safety or not? Because if it's truly about safety, then they shouldn't be able to come up there for any reason, right?
I have a story about safety. When Elizabeth, so the story in short for listeners, as I said, she dealt with health issues our entire marriage. At the very beginning of COVID, she thought she had COVID. Like literally, the day the NCAA canceled the tournament and the NBA paused the season, she called me. I was in Wisconsin for the boys basketball tournament, high school basketball tournament, which one of my former roommates, number one seed, undefeated, they were going to win state. It was a tragedy that they canceled that tournament because these kids worked their entire lives to get to this point. So she calls me. I think I've got COVID. I immediately next day get a flight back to Colorado. She gets a test. It comes back negative 2 weeks later. But because I started exhibiting symptoms, they still thought it was COVID. And so they thought it was a false negative.
Mhm.
Kimberly, you and any layperson listening right now knows you can't diagnose a lung infection that's developing into pneumonia and sepsis over virtual visits. You
Right.
can't.
Correct.
So 7 weeks, up and down, just a kind of a gradual decrease and downturn. And she got hospitalized. She was in the hospital 21 days. I was never allowed in until she was dead. And I always have these questions. Had her doctor seen her in person, would she still be here? I believe so. They would have caught that infection early enough. She would have made it through. Had they allowed visitation, she admitted she would have gone to the hospital sooner.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have waited until she was throwing up with full-blown sepsis and almost died that first night that she was there.
Well, you remember when people were going to the hospital, they were turning around and telling them to go home. Well, come home until come back when you can't breathe. If they had just mild symptoms, they were saying, not to even go into the hospital. They would send them home. Really, in my mind, all they were saying was come back when you are a prime candidate for a ventilator. Because that's what it was all about. It was about placing these patients on ventilators because there were very, very large financial incentives that were attached to ventilating these patients. It was just devastating to witness this over and over again.
I also have the question of she was in the hospital over Mother's Day weekend. And my mom was coming out to Colorado to go help out with the boys because I was in a full-on media blitz. I had a dear friend of mine that I used to work with. He sent a blast out to 750 reporters throughout Colorado and health reporters outside of Colorado. So I was doing everything I could to say, hey, people are being forced to recover in the hospital. And we know the studies.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one I remember that I quoted often that the AARP helped to facilitate that equated loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So we know it. And we also know conversely that having a loved one there aids in the healing process, increases health outcomes. There are lots of studies that talk about that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm getting all this media. My mom's coming out and I'm like, okay, I'm driving right by the hospital in Denver to pick her up at the airport. I live in Colorado Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Do I just drive by and drive back? I can see the hospital right there from I-225. Or do I go a little early, bring the boys, bring her, stop and get gyros from our favorite gyro place, sit outside the hospital, FaceTime, and then wave to her from the van? I thought that would encourage her.
Yeah.
At the end of that call, she got super emotional. And whenever she got emotional, her health would dip.
Yeah.
And I got a call at 2 a.m. Your wife is bleeding in one of her lungs. We're moving her to the ICU. Don't come up. 2 hours later, We think we've isolated it. It's a couple small arteries. Don't come up. So I have this question. Had we been allowed to suit up
Hmm.
and her to be wheeled out to the little courtyard just right outside the hospital and hug on her and give her attention and hold her hand, would she have dipped that night?
Yeah.
I don't believe she would have.
What day was that? Just out of curiosity. You said she was in the hospital like 21 days. Was this after?
So
So, I
this is
mean,
so she went in, she woke up at 3 in the morning, throwing up on April 29th, 2020. And after 2 hours of that, she wasn't even able to keep a sip of Gatorade down. We knew she had to go to the hospital. And so we called the ambulance. They came, picked her up. I used to coach high school football here locally. One of my former players was one of those EMTs, firefighters that came over to the house, and it was good to see him
yeah.
with the circumstances. But yeah, and then she ended up dying on May 19th,
Yeah.
2020.
So,
And
by that
my,
time, she's not even symptomatic anymore because it's a respiratory virus and it's not contagious after like 7 to 9 days, it's dead. So it didn't really make sense. And I always said, if people want to come, like give them the PPE, or you don't want to spare the PPE, make them bring their own PPE, whatever, have them sign a liability waiver that you're not going to hold the hospital responsible should you get COVID.
I was
Something,
willing to do
anything.
whatever it took to be there.
Yeah.
I said, if I have to pay out of pocket for daily COVID tests, I
Mhm.
will do that.
Yeah.
If I have to pay hospital markup rates for whatever PPE they require, where do I write the check?
Yeah.
If I am willing to do whatever is necessary in order for me to be able to be with my wife, because in 2014 she spent a total of 5 weeks in the hospital. That hospital, University of Colorado Hospital in Colorado. The first one was a massive lupus flare up that was being misdiagnosed because all the blood markers around the lupus showed that it was in remission.
Mhm.
And finally, they were like, even though the lupus looks like it's in remission, all these symptoms are kind of around lupus. And so we're just going to treat it like lupus and see what happens. Gave her a bunch of steroids, and boom, within 6 hours, she was getting up by herself, going to the bathroom by herself, which is something she hadn't done in months. I had to help get her up out of bed, had to help put her socks on, had to help get her into the shower, those kinds of things in the weeks and months prior to that. So she was in there for about 2 weeks then. She got better so quickly that some undiagnosed pulmonary hypertension raged. And she ended up going in the hospital in November of 2014 with a significantly enlarged heart that was failing congestively. And so we were there 24/7. I would be in there 2 or 3 days, and then her mom would be in there 1 or 2. And we just do this rotation where we were always there with her, rubbing her feet, rubbing her shoulders, getting an ice pack, helping to get her out of bed, encouraging her, speaking words of life over her, praying over her, casting a vision for our future. Those kinds of things
Those are huge.
that help heal people.
Yeah.
And her doctor told me 2 months later, he was like, I have never seen someone turn around like they have from the brink. Because when she went in there, he told me it was an end of life situation, quote unquote, end of life. That's what he told me. And he said, I have never seen somebody recover over a 3 month period in the way in which she has. Whatever you are doing, keep it up.
Yeah.
And
It
I
makes
believe
such
with
an
everything in me
incredible difference.
that it was everything that we were doing, which was holding her hand. And so I saw tangibly the power of having a loved one there. And I knew that if I was in there and I was willing to be quarantined to her room, I was willing to wear a mask 24/7. And if I was ever caught without one, I was willing to be kicked out.
Mhm.
Whatever rules they wanted to come up with, I was willing to abide by. And you mentioned the safety and how it didn't all make sense in the whole lead up to this. When they told me that she had gone in, so on May 19th, I got a call Your wife has gone into cardiac arrest. You need to get up here now. Now. It's an hour and a half for me to get up there.
Yeah.
Jump in the Ford Explorer, drive up. 20 minutes into the drive, I call. They say they're still doing chest compressions. I knew, Kimberly, at that point, I wasn't going to see my wife.
Yeah.
I just knew it. An hour into the drive, I called her doctor, Dr. Todd Bull, who's an amazing human being, got on the phone. She didn't make it. When it was all said and done, and I was walking out of the hospital, it didn't hit me because I was in such shock. It didn't hit me until about 2 a.m. that night. More than half of the doctors, nurses, janitors on the ground floor were not wearing masks.
Yeah.
If this was that serious, why were they not wearing masks on that ground floor?
Yeah. And none of it ever made any sense. And, I mean, I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. I mean, it's so devastating, but it has become all too common that we hear these things and we see these things. And I don't ever think that I will become immune to hearing these stories. I mean, they break my heart every single time that I hear it, and every single time that I think back to the patients that we lost when I was working the ICU during the height of the pandemic. I mean, when I tell you I am haunted to this day, I can't get their faces out of my head. I think about them all the time. I still see their faces, and I know that most of them didn't need to die. If we had done things differently, they would still be here. Many of them would still be here because we didn't do anything to mitigate damage from this virus. We did nothing. We left them there. We left them there isolated, alone. We gave them medication that was harmful. Did your wife, do you know, did she receive remdesivir?
No, this is
You didn't
way
know.
before
Okay.
remdesivir. This is like I said, April, May of 2020. This is when they said they still didn't really understand. They were still kind of getting a
This
bead
is like
on
at the
it.
very, very beginning. I think we were
Yeah,
still fooling with the monoclonal antibodies at that point, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And because she didn't have COVID,
Mhm.
she never had COVID.
Yeah, I
She
remember
just
hearing that. She never had
she
COVID.
she had just a regular lung infection that developed into pneumonia and sepsis.
Yeah.
It was it was something that had COVID not been
Right.
going going on, they would have just given her an antibiotic
Just
and
curious,
monitored her.
did they put it down as a COVID death? Did they put COVID
No,
on her?
no,
They
I
did
looked.
not.
I made sure I was talking with my congressman's chief of staff, and that was a concern, and they were watching that. And fortunately, credit to University of Colorado
Yeah.
Hospital, they didn't.
Yeah, because
I mean,
we did see a
she
lot of that.
she tested negative twice.
Yeah.
She tested negative in March, mid-March, and then she tested negative on April 29th when she was admitted to the hospital.
Yeah. And how old was your wife?
40 years old,
Oh gosh, so young.
13 and 15-year-old sons.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And you've been navigating this space between grief and taking your pain and turning it into purpose and into helping others and becoming an advocate, because you know what it's like to be in this position and you see it happening. And to your credit, you're saying, you know what, we're not just going to sit here and allow this to happen. We're going to do something about it. So tell me a little bit about how you decided, that this was kind of the breaking point and you were going to take this and move forward to make a change.
Um, in short, I just never wanted to feel that kind of pain ever again.
Yeah.
And I never wanted anyone that I love, whether it be my sons, whether it be a parent, whether it be friend, other family, when the person you love most in the world is isolated in a hospital or a nursing home, and you genuinely think they may not make it, your whole world shuts down. That's all I can say. Your entire world shuts down. Nothing else matters. And I, I heard too many stories of someone in a car accident, motorcycle accident, and they just happened to test pop for COVID. They were probably asymptomatic, not dealing with COVID. And in the months and even years afterwards, isolated because they just happened, or maybe it was a false positive. They're isolated.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be in that kind of a position again. I wanted to be able to be there. I fully understand needing to try and work on infection control and trying to scaling back visitation. I totally get that. Totally get that.
Yeah.
All I've ever asked for is one screened loved one per day, no time limits, no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
If I'm in that hospital, I should be able to spend the night.
I agree.
Like I did in 2014. I probably spent 3.5 weeks total at the University of Colorado Hospital and Anschutz campus in Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah.
I probably spent that many nights there.
Yeah, I agree with you. At least one love. I understand the need to maybe limit it, but like you said, at least one loved one. Now, there are laws in place. For example, with the ADA. So if she were disabled, then she would be allowed an advocate at her side. And again, is it in the name of safety? If it's not safe to have people there, then it's not safe to have people there. But if we're making exceptions, I understand it's a law, but if we're making exceptions, then we should just be doing the same for everyone in the hospital. And I don't think, I mean, it's a hospital. Sick people come in there. We never know what's coming through the doors of a hospital. They are sick people. I mean, and we don't ever know as far as infection control. That's why we have universal precautions. We don't ever know what's coming in the door. We don't ever know what we're going to be exposed to, but that's just part of it. That's a risk that we are willing to take. It was something that really never made sense to me, but it became very infuriating and almost frightening how quickly humanity was sacrificed in the name of protocol, right? But as a
Yeah.
nurse, I sat there and I watched these patients decline emotionally, physically, just from the isolation alone because they didn't have anybody there to. I did the best I could to, beyond the fact that they were isolating from family members, they were trying to isolate the nurses as well. They were saying, cluster your care, get in and get out, don't spend any time. They were making us
Lord.
bring the IV pumps out into the hallways, and I refused to do that. I was like, no, I'm not going to make changes to titrating
Yeah.
drips when I can't lay my eyes on the patient. And I'm not afraid of COVID. I never was. I would take all of my things, I would take all of my papers, my clipboard, everything, and I would go into my patient's room and I would sit there all night long with some of them and I would chart. I would do my charting right there from the room. Because I wanted them to have something, some sense of, yes, they're sedated, they're unconscious, but they are very aware, even peripherally, that somebody is there with them. And to me, that was important, and that's something I encourage the other nurses to do as well. Sit in there and be present
Bravo.
with them.
Bravo. Good
Thank
for
you.
you. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so honored that you're having me on and that you're still in this fight. And
Yeah.
because I had a conference. So I created a nonprofit called the Never Alone Project, all with the goal of mobilizing a community to raise awareness about this issue. So ultimately, we can see federal legislative change that protects a patient's right to at least one screened loved one per day, no time limits, no matter what's going on. I come from a media background. I have an audio and media production business, Right Turn Media. I come out of a radio production background. I worked on a radio broadcast that was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame in 2008, helped lead the production
Oh,
team. I left with the founder to go help start what became the largest rollout in radio history. I understand radio, I understand audio, I understand media. And so I created a podcast called Every Patient's Right, Ending Isolation in Healthcare, a podcast of the Never Alone Project. And I had Gail McRae on. I'm sure you
oh,
know
yes.
Gail,
I
or
know Bill very well.
Gail is awesome. And
She's
and one of the
amazing.
things she said is we're losing these nurses that have that compassion, that have that heart, whether it's to retirement or they've left because they don't like what happened during COVID. And what's being filled in are automatons that are willing to go by, generally, not all of them,
Most of them.
that are willing to willing to listen to whatever they're being commanded to do. And that's dangerous. It is so dangerous.
It is, because we are the last line of defense for these patients. And when we're not stopping to think critically and to question orders, because we have nurses that, whether it be that they're too intimidated by the physicians or that they're not knowledgeable enough or that they are not secure enough and to ask the question. I mean, third leading cause of death in this country is preventable medical error. That's only going to skyrocket when we have nurses that are too afraid to step in and question a doctor's orders, because I can't tell you the number of times that I have had to come in and question an order that could have potentially harmed or even killed a patient. You would be frightened and we'd never go to a hospital again if I told you how many times. And other nurses will back me up on that, I can guarantee you.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the statistics of mistakes leading to death in hospitals. I mean, at one point, I think it was the leading cause of death were mistakes in hospitals.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're right behind cancer and heart disease. So if that's how, and
so,
most of those probably stem from medical stuff. I mean, drugs that we prescribe and things that we do in this medical system that really don't keep anybody well, that continue to perpetuate, patients becoming customers rather than, doing anything to get them well, which is a sad reality of the allopathic system. But we're up against a hard break. But when we come back, I want to learn so much more about what you are doing with the Never Alone Project. So. America Out Loud Talk Radio plays on the iHeartRadio network. You can also listen on our media player from any web browser, anywhere in the world. We have the best in-class apps available on Apple, Android, or Alexa, 24/7 Great Talk Radio. All of our shows go to podcast the following day. You can hear them on apps such as Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeart Podcast, and many more. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts for me. Don't forget to check out our online store at americaoutloud.shop, where you can find all of the products that we represent on our network at a discounted rate, including an incredible line of products from Chemical Free Body. Unlike the majority of supplements you'll find on the market today, with Chemical Free Body, you won't have to worry about harmful ingredients, binders, fillers, or flow agents. Their ultra-safe breakthrough nanosilver technology destroys pathogens, balances the microbiome, and boosts immunity. All of these products are proudly made in the USA and are backed by an unheard of double your money back guarantee. I've made a twice daily Green 85 drink part of my routine, which has led to a decrease in belly bloat and an increase in my energy throughout the day. Use promo code OUTLOUD to save 20% off the Healthy Gut Bundle. I'll catch you on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
In just 2 minutes per day, you can reclaim your health and vitality and cut your grocery bill in half with one simple, convenient product. Our doctor-formulated Green 85 juice formula's powerful dose of ultra-concentrated essential nutrients stops hunger in its tracks and supplies your cells with what's missing in the grocery store food. It's packed with wheatgrass, chlorella, dandelion, moringa, spirulina, broccoli sprouts, acai berry, beetroot, probiotics, enzymes, vitamins A, D, K, B12, just to name a few. Go to chemicalfreebody.com/outloud today. Get nature's super multivitamin Green 85, empower your immune system, cut down on your grocery bill, and save 20% on your first order.
Your heart is the most crucial muscle in your body. Are you doing enough to keep it strong? Introducing the Wellness Company's Breakthrough Healthy Heart Formula, designed by Dr. Peter McCullough, now upgraded with taurine. This daily supplement supports cardiovascular health and works to protect cells against oxidative stress. Packed with D-ribose to boost heart function, taurine to help maintain heart and muscular health, coenzyme Q10 and selenium citrate to help reduce risk of cardiac disease, and a vitamin B complex with L-carnitine for energy and muscle support. Endorsed by the Wellness Company's Chief Medical Board, this formula is your ally for heart health. Reclaim your health now at twc.health/outloud and use code OUTLOUD for 20% off your first order plus free shipping.
You wouldn't go a day without brushing your teeth or washing your hands. What about washing your nose? I mean, your nose does filter the air you breathe, air loaded with bacteria, viruses, and irritants. Make nasal hygiene part of your routine with Clear. No messy bottles to fill, no drowning sensation. Clear is a natural drug-free saline with the added benefit of xylitol, which blocks bacterial and viral adhesion. Available in stores and online at clear.com. That is XLEAR.com.
Have you been looking for a healthy snack for on the go, but all the energy and protein bars are just too sweet and full of sugar, preservatives, and mystery ingredients? Well, not all energy bars are soft and sugary. Bear Bars are a crunchy, savory bar made from just 6 simple, natural ingredients. They're plant-based, organic, packed with protein and nutrients, and are low-temp dried for a unique crunch. Most energy bars are based on chocolate or fruit and are held together with syrups and sweeteners, but Bear Bars are a delicious combination of veggies, nuts, and seeds. They're a perfect fast snack for hikes, workouts, and busy moms and dads. To learn more, just visit bearbar.com/outloud and get the exclusive discount just for America Out Loud listeners. That's BEARBAR.com/outloud.
Hi, I'm Dr. James Bragman, board certified DO in internal and geriatric medicine. Whether you're flying on a cruise, driving, or exploring, use Cofix RX Nasal Cleanse daily to help protect yourself from viruses, bacteria, and allergens. Cofix RX is easy to use, safe, and effective, and fits perfectly in your pocket or purse. Travel with confidence and stay healthy with Cofix RX Nasal Cleanse. Click on the Cofix RX banner ad in the American Out Loud shop for 20% off your next order of Cofix RX.
Well, it's high time Americans refuse to be pawns in the human chess game. Under the name of diversity, politicians divide the people in their quest for power. Well, diversity of opinion and expression is as American as apple pie. Now is our time, my fellow Americans. AmericaOutloud.news. Liberty and justice for all.
Welcome back to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Wherever you're listening from today and whatever you're doing, I thank you for giving me the gift of your time. Be sure to make AmericaOutloud.news your daily stop for all the latest news and happenings. We all must do our part and share the stories, the articles, the podcasts, and videos so we can help secure America's future. If you're just joining us, I've been talking with the founder of the Never Alone Project, Steve Reiter. Let's jump right back in. Steve, thanks again for being here with me today.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit on the first half. You were sharing your absolutely heartbreaking story of the loss of your wife, Elizabeth. Mother of your 2 children. And this is a story that unfortunately I've heard time and again, and I've shared many of these stories on my show. I love having the platform to share space with you and to share space with others like you, but I hate that we have to continue to do this. But you are aiming to give me something else to talk about on my show, because maybe we don't have to, share these types of stories anymore. You are building this organization, the Never Alone Project. So I want you to tell my listeners a little bit more about that, how that works. What kind of, are you pushing for legislative changes? You said, I think before break, how's that going?
Yeah. So like I said before the break, the goal of the organization is to mobilize a grassroots community to raise awareness about the issue of people being forced to recover and die alone, so that ultimately we can see federal legislative change that will protect a patient's right to at least one screened loved one per day, no time limits, no matter what's going on. So how is it going? It's up and down. I mean, here in Colorado, we're the only blue state in the nation that has these kinds of protections. But in order to get it across the finish line, we had to make some concessions with the hospital association to get some Democrats on board in order for them to be able to vote yes. And so will it really hold up during the next pandemic? I don't think so. Maybe.
They really have a way.
I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now, Kimberly. In the months after it was signed, one of my board members or I, because she used to work for the United Way and she could get these calls, we get a call. I'm isolated. What do? I'd send them a link to Elizabeth's Law, and say, show this. Every single time they got in.
Really?
Every single time, which leads to one of the big problems with nearly all of the legislation. I'd say probably all of the legislation that is in place within states is there's no punishment, no real punishment for hospitals if they disobey this law.
Right. Yeah.
Because Arkansas State Representative Julie Mayberry, who's faithfully served her district for years, and actually just this week announced she's not seeking re-election, which I'm really bummed. And we traded some messages back and forth because she was the first to get any substantive legislation across the finish line. And she told me there were two problems that she saw in the months and couple of years after it was passed in 2021, which was nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
And because nobody knew about it and there were no punishment for the hospital would just lock people out often. And if they did know about it, though, they were often afraid to report it to the state because they were afraid of retribution from the hospital in terms of quality of care, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that
They
was
didn't
a
want to
real
ruffle any
issue.
feathers. And it's a massive issue. I mean, in Texas has legislation, but in it is a little stipulation that a doctor can override the patient's visitation. And we all know all it takes is an administrator from on high. You of all people should know an administrator from on high to say no visitation under penalty of your hours being cut and your patients being cut.
Yeah.
And there's no visitation then in the hospital. Or in the case of Gail Seiler, who we both know.
Yeah, I know Gail.
She went in unvaccinated, and as a punishment for being unvaccinated, or if you're on the other side of the fence, because the doctor knew the family also that would have been visiting would have likely been also been unvaccinated, he wanted to block them out entirely.
Yeah.
He said no visitation whatsoever. So and then in Florida, for example, Governor Ron DeSantis did this big press conference that got national media attention. He said, we now have no patient left alone legislation here in Florida. I looked at that legislation, the law. All it guarantees is a daily 2-hour visit.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's not going to work. Because
That's
we
it.
We can't pinpoint when somebody's going to pass, right? We don't know.
Not just that, though. But I have a friend who had an elderly aunt hospitalized in Greeley, Colorado in the summer of 2020. Her cousin, the daughter, is a registered nurse. All she got was 1 hour during the day. That was it. She got in for 1 hour.
And
she would go in and she would say, my mom is dehydrated. She's developing bed sores, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
She'd go in the next day. My mom is still dehydrated. The bed sores are getting worse, this, that, and the other. Those kinds of things that a loved one would have been able to help that nurse with because of that 1 hour visit. I mean, on a personal note, in March of 2023, 3 years into this, my dad got hospitalized with COVID. Rural Wisconsin, Portage, Wisconsin, Divine Savior Hospital. Hospital I was born in. New building, same hospital. So my mom takes my dad in, and they tell my mom all she gets is a daily 10-minute visit. She had to get into a full suit. 10 minutes. I called that hospital and I lost my freaking mind.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been on Candace Owens, I've been on Babylon Bee, I've been on these big media outlets. This is the trauma that my family went through. You are going to let my mom in. Yeah. Finally, it went all the way up to corporate, and corporate said, yeah, we'll give your mom an exception. How long does she want? The whole freaking day. Come and go as she wants.
And exactly back to my point with, if you're going to make an exception, then it's truly not in the name of safety. It's truly not.
Yep.
Because we don't
Yep.
make exceptions in the name of safety, right? I mean, if it's truly, truly about that, then we don't make exceptions. So that's something that that's a hill I will die on. And, what can I do? What can the listeners do? How can we help you to push these types of actions forward and to support you?
So a few ways. Number one, go to neveraloneproject.org, sign up for the email list, get involved, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Just a month and a half ago, actually, I got a subscription to Opus Clips, and I've been daily posting videos, mostly from the podcast, but I've also done some nice videos that my team has put together where we go through, we break down some studies in a Facebook reel, Instagram reel kind of format, and we let people know, hey, this is still a problem because in most states we don't have these kinds of protections. And really what it's going to take is federal legislation, because there are some states that are never going to pass legislation. I used to say California. Amazingly last year, Representative James Gallagher, Chico, California, Northern California, introduced no patient left alone legislation. And it passed unanimously in the House and Senate. Once it got to Gavin Newsom's desk, he vetoed it.
Sure.
And in his veto note, it looked like it was written by the Hospital Association about how hospitals need to be able to pivot and control infection, this, that, and the other. Nothing about the need for the individual to have the love and attention that they need and that people could die alone. Nothing in there about that.
See, this is exactly what they did to us when we were pushing as nurses, when we were pushing for legislation for safe staffing ratios, because there's currently, unless you're in California, they have it now, but currently there's no limit to how many patients they can give a med-surg nurse. So typically on average, it's usually between probably 5 or 6, but I've seen as many, and when I floated to med-surg, I've taken as many as 8 patients. That is so unsafe. And we were pushing for legislation. There was a nurse out in Massachusetts that was really pushing for this. That's my home state. And she was really pushing to have them adopt the safe patient staffing ratios. And they kept pushing back, basically saying the same thing. The hospitals need they need the room to move and control and pivot and do all the things that they need to do. But nothing in the name of safety for the patient, nothing in the name of safety for the nurse. This is our licensure at the end of the day. If something happens and the patient is harmed, the hospital will throw the nurse under the bus in an instantly.
Yeah.
We're getting thrown under the bus, and nothing is going to happen to the hospital. Of course, nurse will likely lose her license in her entire career and have to live with the fact that she inadvertently harmed a patient.
Yeah.
So
it's corporate medicine. It's corporate medicine is what it is, and it's a massive problem here in America, the United States. It's a massive problem. Now, what is the solution? When we were in Arizona at that conference, I got together and had lunch with Dr. Denis Cortese. Dr. Denis Cortese, 40 plus years at Mayo Clinic, finished as the president and CEO of the whole freaking thing. There is no one other than another president and CEO of Mayo Clinic that is a peer of his. I mean, Mayo Clinic, in my opinion, it's a level above Cedar Sinai, Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, those others. They're great. They're world class, but Mayo Clinic, and he and I have had a couple of conversations just about the problems with the American healthcare system. Why did it happen the way that it did? And he agrees with me. We need to have this ultimately in federal legislation because the hospitals were caught with their pants around their ankles.
Yeah.
And they were so busy making money off of baby boomers that they didn't see it coming. He gave me this example. He said, Steve, this is how ill prepared This is just an example of how ill-prepared hospitals were for COVID. They gave lip service that they saw something coming because, SARS, swine flu, bird flu, Ebola, MERS, Zika, West Nile, all of those that the media was promoting would be the next big Spanish flu could be.
Yeah.
He said he's currently teaching at ASU and teaching future hospital administrators. The guy's an amazing human being. And he said, Steve, I called all the major hospitals around the Phoenix area because in Arizona is a nuclear power plant. And he said, I asked them, what's your plan? What's going to happen if that thing melts down? What are you guys doing? None of them had a plan. Zero, nada, none of them. And this is a massive problem here in America. It's just, it's all about profits. It's all about maximizing shareholder dollars or maximizing profits and giving the executives their big bonuses. And it needs to be fixed. And Dr. Cortese has some ideas that I agree with. Some of them I'm unsure because I don't know. I mean, it sounds like socialism to me, but I don't know. As someone who's on,
that's kind of like on where I am
someone,
on the fence. Yeah.
As someone who is unaffiliated, I left the Republican Party 20 plus years ago when I saw they were full of it.
Yeah,
I
they're
did.
all full of it. Republicans, Democrats, all of them. It's not a left or right issue; it's an up or down issue, and people would be well served to understand.
Exactly. And so, what's the fix? I have no idea. But this is my one issue that I am the most passionate about: is that people need people.
Yes.
And if we are isolating them, it's nothing more than solitary confinement, especially if nurses are being told in, out, in, out.
Yeah.
That's solitary confinement.
Yeah.
And the left traditionally has railed against that.
Yeah.
But this, well, it's about collectivism and it's about, trying to protect the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one or the few. And let's just try and find a balance because we lost our humanity during COVID and we need to find it again.
I agree with you 100%. And I will say that my only fear is that, I'm all for legislation and I will help in any way I can. You need me to testify somewhere, I will testify. I will do whatever I can do to help you and support you in what you're doing because I think it's amazing. My fear, though, is that no matter what legislation we have in place, there will always be, the system is designed to protect itself. And there will always be, a get out of jail free card or some loophole in there, like the PrEP Act that covers everybody, covers and gives everybody immunity from the hospitals to big pharma. So that's my fear, that no matter what we do, no matter what kind of legislation we have in place, there will always find a way to shield themselves. And that's why I just want to get out of the system entirely. I'm just done.
If it's done right,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has to have some teeth to it. And most of them don't.
And I had lunch with Congressman Andy Harris, medical doctor who is a Republican congressman from Maryland. I amazingly, through a connection, ended up getting a quick lunch with him. Mm-hmm. And at the time, he and Congressman Jeff Van Drew, both on the Doctors Caucus, Jeff Van Drew's from New Jersey, they had introduced a good starting point. And their starting point was to amend the Social Security Act and basically write in visitation. And at that lunch with Andy, I said, Congressman Harris, I said, listen, here's the problem. Just last week, there's nothing in here about time. And just last week, my dad was hospitalized and all my mom got was a 10-minute visit. So hospitals will do this. They will let someone in there for 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever, and say, there we go, we're complying. I said, the other thing is there's nothing in here about an emergency situation. No, this needs to be something that is planned as part of the emergency. What happened to all those stockpiles of PPE that were depleted during swine flu under President Obama's term and never replenished by him or President Trump.
Yeah.
Blame's on both. The blame is on both parties for not replenishing that. And so as we've seen in Florida, as we've seen in Texas, as we've seen in many other, West Virginia is another one that has legislation, but you get one visit every 5 days, 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Unless it's imminent death. And really, what is imminent death? Because the first night Elizabeth was in the hospital, she told me, I thought I was going to choke to death on my own phlegm.
Yeah.
When she had that bleeding in her lungs a day and a half before Mother's Day, that not count as imminent death, where she was moved into ICU?
Things in the hospital can turn on a dime. Anybody that works in the ICU will tell you that you can be, everybody's good until they're not. And then it can go really, really, really quickly. And so there's no way that should be acceptable. I can't believe we're already running out of time. This really feels like it went so quick, it went by so quickly. But I thank you so much for joining me. Your strength is so admirable. It's such a gift to have you here. I'm very honored to share this space with you today. We will include links to your website and all of your social media handles in the show notes that will accompany this episode once it goes to podcast. Steve Reiter, thank you again. And it is the neveraloneproject.org. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Kimberly.
That is all the time that we have for today, friends. But remember, we are here on the air Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern with a different nurse host daily. You can also catch the encore at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please be sure to tune in and listen to myself and my amazing, courageous nurses. As we walk you through all of these hot topics, we will empower you with information and education. We will advocate and we will stand in the gap for you because we are nurses and this is what we do. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. You can find me here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, be safe, be well, and God bless. Remember, we are in a war for truth. We are putting out a bounty on the real misinformation and exposing the purveyors of propaganda. No topic is off limits as we shine our lights, expose the darkness.